Welcome to a new episode of the Bobcast here presented by the Bobcat Sports Network. My name is Matt Ambrose and I'm joined here by men's basketball head coach Sean Brown. And coach, your team began your season this past weekend on the road, losses in both games to Shaw and St. Augustine's. Close matchups in both of those games. So, coach, what's your evaluation through two games of your team so far this season?
Through the first two games, I knew we were going to be competitive, and that's what we did. We competed. We went toe to toe and end to end with both of our opponents. Shaw being the first night, and St. Augustine's being the second. We were we had a little bit nervous energy. I kind of felt like we played on our heels a lot. We didn't take the game to Shaw the first night, and I also feel like we were a little bit timid the second night also. Although it didn't show in the box scores, we did score a lot of points, um, but I still feel like we didn't play Frostburg State basketball.
In that first game, the Shaw matchup, the season opener, you trailed by 13 at the half in that game, and trailed by as many as 15 in the second half. But you guys clawed back and made it close, only losing by 4, 96 to 92, the final score in that one. What changed for your team down the stretch in that game against Shaw that helped you kind of cut the deficit down and make it a game down the stretch?
Well, we turned up the tempo. We made a few subs. I think we went small. We went with our small ball lineup with our point guard Daniel, and we moved him to the four position. So we went with our small ball lineup, and we really got after the Shaw in the full court. We created some turnovers, made some really tough shots in that time, and we also made some timely shots during that time. So that's what did it. We still had some really bad mistakes in coming back. We missed some crucial free throws. That's a game. Obviously, the team and the coaching staff feel like we should have won. We turned the ball over 20 plus times. I think it was 22 or 23 times. Um, we missed 12 free throws. So as bad as as it's coming off as I think we played, we were in the game and we still should have won it running away.
Now, we knew going into this year that the top returner for your team would be Daniel Alexander, and he was going to be the guy to watch this year, and he backed that up this weekend with two double doubles in the games, 22 points, 12 boards against Shaw, and then 25 points and 12 rebounds against St. Augustine's. How impressed are you with Daniel's start to the season?
Not, I'm not very impressed. To be honest, I'm expecting this from him every night out. Um, there's another level that the coaching staff think that he can take his game to. To be honest with you, um, he got off to some slow starts this weekend. He was another guy we felt like was he's on his heels instead of attacking. But man, in those comebacks in both games when he got going, he's pretty good. He's almost unstoppable. He made some really tough shots, made some really big plays for us. Um, he's really grown his game over the last couple of years, and we look for him to do big things like that every single night.
So in the looking at the St. Augustine's game, good bench production in that game. 43 bench points for your team, leading the way in that department. 13 for Terry Kenner off the bench. 78 guys also came off the bench for your team, scored points in St. Augustine's game. So is that kind of the type of production that we can expect to see coming off the bench? Really having really whoever subs in off the bench being able to come on and be a scoring threat for you guys.
Well, that's the way we're gonna have to play. Um, we don't have the heavy hitters as some of the other schools that we're gonna play against early on these first couple of years. So it's gonna have to be a group effort. Um, eventually, we'll get there, But right now, we're going to have to use. It's going to have to be a team effort. We're going to have to use 10, 11, 12 guys. To kind of have fresh bodies and until we can transition into this Division II basketball. The strength, the speed, the talent level in this conference and all of Division II. So it's going to have to be guys coming off the bench and giving good efforts, and every night it may be someone different. Um, Again, we're expecting Daniel to do what he does, but he needs help, and we're going to continue to push these guys at practice, and again, free throws and turnovers. That's stuff that can be cleaned up and hopefully will be cleaned up. And we take care of that stuff, and this is a different conversation.
So, I mean, we're 2 games in. Obviously, you played 2 close games to start off the season, and some coaches may look at being close in these first 2 games as a positive or somewhat of a building block. Some other coaches may see it as we can play better. There are things we can improve. How do you see it after these? How do you see the trajectory of this team through these 2 games? Is it more of we can be better than what we've shown, or are you happy that your team was able to hang in, or is it a combo of both of those?
It's a combo of both.
Yeah.
It's a lot of what I expected. I can be honest with you. A lot of folks thought that that it would be worse than it is.
Mm-hmm.
I knew we'd come in and compete, but competing it's not quite good enough for us.
Right.
We want to win. We want to win games. We want to come out of those with W's and then clean up our mistakes on the back end of after wins. But it's a little bit of both. I'm happy to see our guys hung in and competed all the way down the stretch to the end of both ball games. But also, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't take care of business on some of the fundamental things of the game, and that's kind of what we teach and what we preach.
So this coming week, 2 more non-conference road games for you guys. You hit the road to play Mansfield on Wednesday, and then you're at Shepherd on Saturday this week. What are you looking for from your team this week to get a W?
Well, we have to take care of the ball, number one. Number 2, we have to do a better job of defending. I wasn't happy with the way we defended this weekend. Gave up a ton of points in both games, and if we want to win ball games, we're going to have to do a lot better job of defending, and also rebounding the basketball. Although the numbers look close, we didn't get timely rebounds. We didn't rebound the ball when needed. We gave up a lot of second chance points in the first half of Saturday's game, and it hurt us down the stretch. So those are the 3 things I think we need to clean up. We have to take care of the ball. Excuse me. Right now we're averaging right about 20 turnovers a game, and that's a recipe for disaster.
All right, Coach. Well, pleasure talking to you here on the Bobcast, and looking forward to your games this week and talking to you the rest of the year.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me.
Back on the Bobcast, presented by the Bobcats Sports Network. Matt Ambrose sitting down with women's basketball head coach Carrie Saunders. And, Coach, you opened your season this past weekend on the road in the MEC versus PSAC Challenge. Losses to East Stroudsburg and Shippensburg. But you're really in it for both of those games. A 7-point loss to East Stroudsburg. Lost 80-68 to Shippensburg. So when you look at those 2 games, what were your main takeaways from these first 2 games of the season?
We came out of that weekend 0-2, but I don't think our team feels that way whatsoever. I know for a fact that Friday afternoon game against East Stroud, that we know that we could have beaten that team. We say we're chalking that one up to first D2 game jitters. We never really settled in. We played a little nervous, played a little uneasy. And I think, we always say if we play them, again the next day after we have a game under us, we're coming out on top. So, from that standpoint, I'm proud of our girls that we hung in there, we fought in there. We can't go 50% from the free throw line and 1 for 13 in the fourth quarter and expect to win. I think, we learned a lot that game, that when we have those opportunities, we've got to be able to take them. You go 60% from the free throw line and make 2 more baskets in the fourth quarter, and I think it's a different outcome too. And then Saturday's game, I could not be more proud of our girls. We were in that game 100%. You look at the stat line and you take out free throws, and we win that game. They were 24 or 23 of 33 from the free throw line, and we were, I think, 6 for 9 or something like that. Like, it was a huge unfair advantage from the free throw line.
Right.
You don't usually look back at a game and the team that sits in a zone is the one that's in foul trouble. But we played so hard. That team is a really good PSAC team. I think they got preseason picked 3rd and have a chance, I think, to win that conference. So we learned a lot about ourselves, and when we came back together, we don't feel like we're 0-2. I think we learned a lot.
That Friday, the first game of the season, the East Strouds game was a low-scoring game. Again, 55-48 was the final score. Morgan Dabrowski and Victoria Diggs, 30 of your 48 points, those two combined for. How happy were you to see those two in particular start off their seasons the way they did?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for Diggs, we kind of, have expectations in a way because she's such a great scorer for us. And, to have a transfer come in and put up, good numbers for us day one or game one is obviously great to see. I think that duo will be a good duo to watch as we continue to grow throughout the season. I think that just this weekend they gained more chemistry, and I think that their chemistry, looking for each other and knowing what each other needs in certain situations is just going to continue to grow. So, yeah, I was really happy for those two.
The Shippensburg game, we saw more of a balanced dispersal of scoring for your team. You had 4 players scoring double digits in that game, and 6 players scored 9 or more in that game as well. Is this kind of the scoring output that you want to see for your team, or we can expect throughout this season?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we talked about after the game is, production. We have Diggs and Amanda, who are 2 seniors that are returning right now, with Sydney still out. And obviously they're our go-to players. But I think we also have so many more go-to players. And I think if you look back after every game, we need different people scoring. And that's what's going to make us successful. And we have that capability. I mean, Kayla is a great scorer. Jada played just out of her mind on Saturday. And if we can get that production, and we talked about the depth, like we haven't scratched the surface of our bench yet. And once we do that and those kids are giving us decent minutes, then, I always say, like, watch out because, we're a really good team.
You mentioned Jada Holland in that answer, and she was named to the all-tournament team at the event, the MEC versus PSAC Challenge, and a big game for her on Saturday, as you mentioned, 11 points and 11 rebounds in the game against Shippensburg. What allowed Jada to have so much success in that game?
I almost wish I knew so I could get it out of her every day. But that's exactly what I told her is, like, whatever you channel today, like, that's what we need every single game. As soon as, I was just back there watching the film, and as soon as she kind of clicked in, and I think she ripped an offensive board away from their best post player, who's an unbelievable post player for them, the energy within our team completely shifted, and we were like, okay, she's ready to play. And our team feeds off of her so much. When she's ready and she's getting after it, our team gets after it. She played. I'm so proud of her, and I think she deserved that award on Saturday. Ripping down 11 boards against a team that had dominant post players like that. We went into that game knowing that we had to shut 23 down from the inside and shut 15 down from the outside, and she did just that. Her and Amanda did that. And didn't allow them to score. And I think we're just as physical. And that's where I challenged her, and she rose to the challenge, and I hope it sticks around.
Amanda Emery was another player for your team that had a good weekend on the boards. 14 rebounds for her to go along with 9 points. She played all but 3 minutes against East Stroudsburg on Friday. and then 12 points, 9 boards for her in Shippensburg on Saturday.
Yeah.
This is a player in Amanda Emery. She's been a very durable player
Mm-hmm.
in this program for 4 years. She's played all but one game in her career here across 4 years. So how encouraging is it to see her start her season this way?
So the crazy thing about Amanda is she just got out of a cast on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And she played all but 3 minutes on Friday. And that's the type of kid that she is. She was down there in the training room and her cast was literally getting cut off her hand. And she looked at our team doctor and said, "So I'm playing Friday?" Like, that's just her. And, you can't coach that. That's in her. She wants to be out there. She wants the ball. She doesn't shy away from physicality. If anything, she's the one that's producing that physicality. And for her to start off her year that way, without, I think, being 100%. She's not even close to being 100%. She's wearing a splint on her shooting hand, and she's still coming up with boards and rebounds, and she's shooting from the outside with it, and she can't even bend her wrist. So that just tells everybody about that kid. I'm excited to get her back to full strength, and once everyone's at full strength, because Diggs even tweaked her ankle, 2 days before we opened up. So, I'm excited for her and to watch her progress through the year.
When you look at this weekend, and you've talked a lot about how impressed or how happy you were with how the team performed this weekend, what's one thing about your team's performance that you can pinpoint that you can build off of moving forward? Just 2 games in, obviously, a long way to go. But what is one thing that you can really look at and say, we did really well with this, let's build off of this, and other good things will come as a result?
The one thing that came into my mind is coachability. We were crazy coachable, especially on Saturday. We adjusted and we adjusted again, and then we adjusted again. And I'm calling timeouts and making adjustments, and they are executing it to perfection. And for us to be able to do that really shows me how much they buy in and how much they trust the decisions of the coaching staff, and that's huge. And then to carry over, we got production out of, all of our players. I think the name that we didn't mention is Kayla Wilson, and she didn't show up really in points, but on Saturday she had 6 assists, which for her, as running our point, and I'm constantly talking to her and telling her what plays I want and which direction to go and who to get the ball to, and she did that, and she rose to that occasion. And for a scorer to kind of take a back seat and pass the ball, I think that's a great thing as well. But there's so many good things to take out of the weekend. Obviously, there's a lot of learning points, but when we walked in, to practice yesterday, Coach Bam and I were like, we have a completely different team. We're 0-2, but our morale is really good right now. So the fact that we can be coachable and the fact that different people showed up, it wasn't just the same person that carried us through the weekend, I think is a really positive thing to carry forward.
So this upcoming week, 2 more games for your team. First off, tonight against Division I foe Mount St. Mary's on the road, and then Friday you head to Mansfield. What's going to be the key to success for your team throughout this week?
Tonight is just working on us. We're just going to go down there. It's another game to get people playing time and working out kinks. So that's what tonight is all about. And then heading into Friday, we're considering that a very winnable game for us to kind of get that first win out of the way so we can, continue to roll from there. But that's going to be a hard-fought game. It's a long trip on a Friday night. But I think our team will be ready, and I think we're going to be hungry to get after that first win. So I'm really excited to get to Friday night. We're going to prep really hard this week. Scouting report's going to play a big impact on it to see how we can carry over a scouting report. So yeah, I'm excited to. This team is really fun to coach right now, and that's a good thing to say in week 1 after an 0-2 start.
Well, Coach, best of luck to you and your team this week, and looking forward to talking to you throughout this season.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Bobcast as we sit down with head football coach Delane Fitzgerald, coming off a 35-25 victory on Saturday over Kentucky Wesleyan to improve to 8-2. And you head into your regular season finale on Saturday on the road at Glenville State. to close out the regular season. So, Coach, let's look back at the Kentucky Wesleyan game. Just your overall thoughts from the win on Saturday.
Yeah, hard fought, tough group. The coaching staff at Kentucky Wesleyan did a nice job of getting their kids prepared to play on Saturday, and they came out and played hard. I was disappointed in our lack of physicality at times in the game on offense, and then defensively we just let them stay on the field too long. They although they were no huddle, they were taking up the entire play clock and standing around at the line of scrimmage, to getting a play in and making checks and all. The time of possession was like 38 minutes to 22 minutes. What was the final time of possession? They did a great job of ball controlling us, and one thing is 100% now in all of football. There's never been a touchdown or a field goal kicked without the football, and as long as they held the ball, it kept us from scoring.
So we've seen a couple times the last few games. It took a little bit of slow starts from this Wesleyan game. We saw it in the Wheeling game a couple of weeks ago. But when you look at this game in particular, what challenges did Kentucky Wesleyan present to you guys that gave you guys issues to start the game?
Well, they've got good players first and foremost. Their wide receiver core is pretty good. That they have 5 or 6 wide receivers on their team that we would like to have. So talent is always going to give you the biggest challenge, and their talent is young. They're young and talented and going to be good in the future, so that posed a challenge. Guys in any type of sport, you'd rather be young and talented than old and not talented, and that they're young and talented and going to be good going forward, but the quarterback can play a little bit, and the wide receivers are pretty good, so that was a challenge for us.
The defense did a really good job at keeping you guys in the game to start off. That long 15-play drive is what started off the scoring in the game for them. But then the next 5 drives for them after that touchdown were 4 punts and a turnover on downs, and 3 of those were 3 and outs. So how pleased were you with the defensive effort and keeping you guys close in that first half?
Yeah, not pleased with the first drive, and the big part of that first drive is we had them in 3rd and 20 and gave up a 21-yard play. You can't do that, but we had a blown coverage by the Mike linebacker and gave up a huge play on 3rd and 20 that kept that drive. So they scored the first drive of the game, which is not a good thing. They missed the extra point, and then our defense gets it together. Our defense played well from that first drive until middle way through the 3rd quarter, and then we started to have some lapses there. But one of the reasons we were having lapses there, guys, is they had played so many plays. Our defense was on the field for 90 plays on Saturday, which is about 25 plays too many.
What we saw from Wesleyan also was they were utilizing a lot of quick passes, it looked like. They didn't want to allow that pass rush for you guys to really get into the backfield. You ended up with 4 sacks, though, against their quarterback, Wiley Kane. So what changed schematically throughout the game that allowed you guys to get into the backfield and pressure the quarterback?
Yeah, well, they changed. But here, coming into the ball game, their coaching staff had put together a good game plan. Where are we real good? Out on the defensive ends. Our defensive ends are pass rushers and good pass rushers. So the first quarter, they cut us. On 3 steps and 5 steps, they were cut blocking our defensive linemen, which is a great game plan to slow a fast defensive line down. And they did that, and he was throwing on time. As the game went on, they stopped cutting us, and they started staying up high and blocking us, which is what they were supposed to do. And the quarterback started holding the ball longer, and him holding the ball that extra second allowed us to get home.
And for your passing game, it was really wide open early on. We saw the running game struggle for Gavin Levat, but Will Brunson was really finding whoever receiver he wanted. First 5 completions for him were all to Terrell Brown, who had over 100 yards on the day. But was that something you kind of noticed early on, the passing game working and the running game kind of struggling, and then it seemed as the game went on, it kind of flip-flopped? So did you see the passing game as kind of a way to open up the running game as the day went on?
You're seeing it for the way it was. Will might have played his best game as a Frostburg Bobcat on Saturday. He threw the ball away when he was supposed to throw the ball away, and even on the incompletions, he threw the ball where the ball was supposed to be thrown. So it might have been Will Brunson's best game as a Frostburg Bobcat, and we were happy with that. What a better time to have it than on your senior day. But he played well, and you're exactly right. Our pass game, it kept us in the ball game and gave us the lead at halftime early on, and then as the game went on, we wore them down physically and hit some big runs at the end. If Gavin Levat and our offensive line are nothing else, they're persistent now. We'll keep coming.
And for Gavin, he had another strong game, of course. Really felt like we've been saying that all season. for the most part. 145 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. He's now over 1,000 yards on the season. It's just the 6th 1,000-yard rusher that Frostburg State has had in their history. And also the first time that you've coached a 1,000-yard rusher in your career going back to Southern Virginia as well. What does this mean for a player like Lovato who's been around this program for a while to achieve this milestone?
Yeah, good for him. Good for our offensive line. Good for the wide receivers and tight ends that block for him. Gavin didn't do it by himself, so he got two great. We have two great offensive line coaches. He's got offensive coordinators committed to running the football, and then our offensive line, tight ends, and wide receivers have all been unselfish, selfless in their pursuit of blocking for him and blocking for our run game. That guy's fastest way from point A to point B is a straight line, and line up and run the ball downhill like we do is the fastest way to get from point A to point B. Gavin's been a good one for us, and he's just a junior. He's got another year to play.
That third quarter is when things kind of opened up. It was 7-6, you guys the lead at halftime. 34 combined points in the third quarter. The majority of it came late in a little over 3-minute span. In that quarter, it was just dueling touchdowns between you and Kentucky Wesleyan. You obviously want to see defensive stops for your team. That's what you have prided yourself on with this team. But when you look at the offensive side of the ball and seeing that they have that quick strike ability where they're scoring and scoring quick, how good of a sign is that to see your offense have that ability when really throughout you've preached a lot, time of possession has been a thing, but to see them do and score in a different way, how encouraging can that be?
Yeah, well, they were scoring entirely too fast. A lack of a pass rush and lack of a pass defense weren't good on our part late in the third quarter. But the big plays, the big kickoff return set up a score. Mm-hmm. Gavin's 58 or 59-yard run set up another quick score. There were big plays that were setting up those scores. And, yeah, it is. How do you say it? Play calling becomes easy. Play calling becomes easy when you have players, skilled players, that can hit the big play for you and put you in a scoring situation quickly.
Last week you got Terrell Brown back, but this week was his best game, really. Over six catches, over 100 yards for Brown. Brandon asked last week about how good it was to get him back, but to see him come back in his second game after missing a few, to come back and have the performance that he did. He was finding space. He was using his speed a lot in that first play of the game, sprinting downfield. How did he look to you, and how happy were you with his performance?
Yeah, Terrell's looked healthy the last 2 weeks. And if I'm not mistaken, Terrell's the third different receiver to have 100 yards for us this year, because Lincoln Ikubu had a 100-yard game, Devon Holton had a 100-yard game, and now Terrell has a 100-yard game. And then Christian Thornton, I don't think he's had a 100-yard game yet this year, but he's as talented as the rest of them. Jawan Worrell, true freshman out of Milford Mill in Baltimore, has been an extremely good freshman for us, going to be a great player going forward. And answering your question, I thought he looked healthy. But the thing that we really smile about around here is we've got 8 or 9 really talented receivers.
And how have you seen them kind of develop? You bring up a good point with those guys like Worrell. We've all seen George Richardson make a couple nice plays. Holton had that good game against Wheeling that you mentioned with the 100 yards. To have this wide array of weapons, and also sprinkle in the tight ends here and there when needed with Chandler Breeden and also Ben Sexton here and there, to have that wide array of weapons at your disposal, how have you seen them really come into form as the season's gone on?
Yeah, you mentioned the tight ends. We need to use the tight ends more than we have, and that'll be a focus in our offseason, is getting our tight ends into our pass game going forward, because Chandler will be back next year, and then Ben Sexton and Brian Evans, and so we redshirted a couple of really good freshman tight ends that we think are going to be players down the road. We've got to get them more involved. I left out George Richardson in talking about the wide receivers. George Richardson's a true freshman wide receiver for us. It's going to be a special player going forward, has a lot of talent and does some things well. High points the football and competes every day in practice and in the games. He's going to be a good one forward. We're excited. We're excited about this Saturday. We're excited about the years to come.
Defensively, you were without Wayne Palmer for this game in the middle linebacker, but Monty Jones filled in for him. Was second on the team in tackles for the game, had 13 of them on Saturday against Kentucky Wesleyan. What was your evaluation of how Monty played?
Yeah, we missed Wayne. We missed Wayne, and Wayne's one of my favorites. Fifth-year senior. He's been a really, really good player. Good player, good citizen. He's been very, very loyal to the football program. Wayne likes playing football, and we're going to miss him after the season is done. But we missed him on Saturday. Monty played good on Saturday, not great. You said he had 13 tackles. If that's the case, then he probably should have had 18 or 19 if you count the ones he missed on Saturday. Monty's got to finish some plays better than he finished them on Saturday. Stopping his feet and actually run through contact, run through tackles, and do those things. But he's got to key the hip and run through the hip on some of his tackles, and he didn't always do that on Saturday. Monty's been a good player here for the last 3 years, and I don't expect anything different from him going forward, but we do want to see him tackle better.
So now this Saturday you are on the road to end the regular season. You're at Glenville State, and this is a Pioneers team that's coming off an upset win on the road on Saturday. They took down Notre Dame in South Euclid on Saturday. So given that result, does that change any preparation leading up, or is this just business as usual, same process going up to this game?
Yeah, Mike Kellar is one of the best coaches in the conference, if not the best coach in the conference. Great offensive mind, and everywhere he's gone, they've been good on offense. There was no doubt in my mind when they named him head coach last winter that Glenville was going to be better going forward. And guys, the next 3, 4, 5 years, however long Mike's there, they'll be better than they are now. But they are playing as good a football as anybody in the conference, obviously evident by going to Notre Dame and beating Notre Dame. And the thing that jumped out at me is how excited they were to play. They went on the road, and I'm sure they stayed overnight, so they got a good rest in the hotel in Ohio. And they were lunchtime at Notre Dame. They were really, really excited to play a game on the road against the number 6 team in the country. That impressed me. That they will be an extremely tough out on Saturday. They've got a quarterback that's playing well and a couple of receivers and running backs that are playing well. They flip over. They have the best defensive player in the conference, number 6, the young man transferred from the University of Wisconsin. But he's a dude now. So he's a dude, and he's the best defensive player in this conference. And we've got to account for him on defense. But then they have 7 or 8 other players on defense that run around and play. I don't look at statistics much, but I'm gonna take a guess and say they're top in the conference in turnovers, defensive turnovers. I know they got Delonte Hood, number 2, running around on defense with a bunch of interceptions because I watched them on film. But they have good DBs, good linebackers, good defensive linemen. I don't know their defensive coordinator, but he's done a nice job of getting them to run to the football and make plays when they get there.
Well, Coach, best of luck to you in leading up to this game and on Saturday, and thanks for talking to us here on the Bobcast.
I appreciate y'all having me. Go Bobcats.
Next up on the Bobcast here, presented by the Bobcat Sports Network, is the swimming teams and head coach Brian Christensen sitting down with me. Coach, 2 meets for your teams this weekend. You had a home meet on Friday night against York and then traveled to West Virginia Wesleyan on Saturday afternoon. So looking at those 2 meets, what were your takeaways really overall from the whole weekend?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here on the Bobcast here, Matt. Our takeaways, we're certainly knew it was going to be an uphill battle going in. York is a very good team. That's a fun meet. We have a lot of connections. We got a couple kids that know people with them. And, we knew we were just going to really focus on some more individual swims and really some more kind of experimental stuff, both doing events that are maybe not necessarily events, but things that we're not don't necessarily take a chance on in a more serious meet against an opponent that we think we're going to win. The result of which was actually very good. We had a lot of great swims, and then West Virginia Wesleyan. I kind of thought it might be close. That they are the reigning conference champions. It ended up not being that close, but we had some good races, had some good swims, and for what it was, I think it was a nice showing. To the rest of the conference, kind of our Mountain East debut.
So the highlight of the weekend was on Friday. Anthony Giuseppetti setting the school record in the 400-meter freestyle with a time of 4:22.81. That was breaking the record that stood for nearly 20 years by Jay Maiden. What kind of work have you seen Anthony put in really in his training and all the preparation he does to be able to achieve something like that?
Yeah, I would say on a team full of Bobcats, Anthony is the Puma. this
like
year.
that one.
He's just been.
Did you come up with that one last night?
I just thought of that right now.
There
I'm
you go.
thinking about what's bigger than a bobcat. As he's prowling, the snowy mountains of the Appalachians, his paw prints been pretty big in the thick, deep snow. I'm done with this metaphor now.
It was a good while it lasts.
I just ruined it. What I mean to say, he has just done tremendous work. It's such a step above where he was last year. I think it's just been all his attitude. There's little things, little signs that tip off that he was going to have a good year, even dating back from last year. We had East Aces wrapped up on like Sunday and open swim. He's there Monday, ready to get back in. And that's the kind of attitude that, starting from his success didn't start from this year. It started from 6-7 months ago, and that really is the critical. That swimming is a it's delayed validation, right? You can't just wake up and be fast. You need to put in the work. And Anthony's been doing that with just this attitude change, where he is not going to take being slow for an answer. And it shows, it shows like you get what you get out of this sport, and he's gotten a lot out of it.
It was funny where I was broadcasting the meet also from where I was sitting. I think a couple of his friends sitting next to me, and the two of them were talking before that event. And he said he was gonna set his own personal best in that event, and he did that and then some, which was it's pretty cool to see on that meet on Friday night.
That was fun.
Yeah. So after that York meet, you turned right around. Less than 24 hours later, you had to go down to West Virginia Wesleyan on Saturday afternoon. So 2 meets in less than 24 hours. So to those who really may not know or aren't very familiar with kind of the layer or the scheduling of how these meets go throughout the season, what kind of challenges does that present, that quick turnaround, does that present for your swimmers?
Well, it's definitely tough. There's definitely a mental challenge in getting up and getting going. I think, emotionally more than anything. But that's the mental training that we want to have. We're going to have our mid-season meet, which is, 2-day, 3-session meet in about 2 weeks. Then, of course, our conference meet is 4 days, and that's a lot of swimming. I think physiologically we're there. We're capable of that. It's not necessarily more strenuous than a practice, but I think it's hard to get up and get going. And we just gotta get good at that. I think we did a good job. It's not like it's not like York was a trap meet or anything. We were able to get up and have some turnaround and have some good races on Saturday, which was great to see.
So you're now 5 meets into the season, and I know when we spoke at the start of the year, you were kind of more focused about just getting back in the pool, getting back in a competition. But now that you're 5 meets into the year, you're over a month in, where do your expectations lie with what you're looking for from your swimmers with each meet?
Yeah, we're certainly past the learn how to swim again chapter of the season, and now if you were a movie fan, you'd call this the rising action. This is like into Act 2, like going up as things get a little bit harder and you just progress more and more. I think we're pretty much into our races at this point, and it's just fine tuning. A big thing I was saying Friday night is just getting our details straight. Work on little things. We're in shape, but it's like having the discipline to hold your streamline and race into the finish and be competitive and all these little things that just add up. So we're going to keep working on it.
We've talked a little bit about the men's side of things and with just Petty and the record and all that, but when you look at the women's side and what they've been able to do so far this year, who's one swimmer through these first 5 meets that has stood out to you the most?
Our senior Megan Culbertson is really reliable. She has a variety of things, and I think her strokes come together in a really good way. Aubrey Morris, the 200 flies was a challenging event, which I think I said this last week, and I think she listens to this. So I will remind her that she is a 200 flyer, and she can get used to that because she had a great swim. Megan Herrenschat, these kind of are some of our elder people. put together some good swims. I think she's very close. I think she needs to challenge herself a little bit more, but has been well ahead of where she was last year. I think a lot of that is a big mental change that she did. Then our freshmen, we had one lone winner this past weekend at West Virginia Wesleyan, which was Anna Hughes in the 100 free, which was really impressive. And I'm excited to see the competitiveness of our first years. Anna, Raina, Sison, the kind of girls who hate to lose, which is a really great trait to have, some of our underclassmen.
So now you have this week off before your next meet, which is 2 weekends from now. You're in Ashland, Virginia to compete in the Yellow Jacket Invitational. When you look at that event, what do you expect to see competition-wise for your side based on who you have to match up against?
Yeah, so we'll do a little rest, throw some tech suits on, try to go really fast that meet. It's a nice mid-season kind of check of where we are. There's definitely going to be some good competition there. I think, Frostburg historically went to that meet, and then we went to Franklin Marshall for years, which was fine. But I kind of liked our opportunities to score a little bit better at down in Randolph-Macon. So I'm excited to post up against. I think there's going to be a lot of teams there, probably 11, 12 teams. Some of them will rest, some of them won't. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are not. And we're going to see where we mix in. It's always great to, start measuring ourselves outside of the typical conference opponents, which is, I don't think there'll be too many. Some of our old opponents, like St. Mary's, will be there. Mm-hmm. So some old friends, some new people. It'll be pretty fun.
What are you going to focus on? You have this week off to prepare, or really these next 2 weeks to kind of get ready for that meet, but no competition this upcoming weekend. So what do you want to focus on with your swimmers in these 2 weeks leading up to that?
So if I were to consider all my swimmers to be bowling pins, I consider myself to be a giant bowling ball that will obliterate them. We're going to roll 300 this week. We're going to smack them down hard. We're going way up. This will be our toughest week of the year. Next week we'll lighten it up. The goal being getting that. If you're a geologist, you would call it an isostatic rebound. See, I know geology terms too.
You're bouncing all over the spectrum.
Oh, I'm
here.
all over.
On Bobcat pond or Puma pones, even a bowling expert. Now
That's
you're,
right.
Wow, you're in the science world now.
So we'll get some. I think shout out to Sawyer Conklin, our geographer on the team here. So we'll kind of line it up a lot next week. The kids can kind of take a breath. And then we're going to swim really fast, which would be cool.
That's good. All right. Well, Coach, best of luck to you these next couple of weeks leading up to that event, and thanks for joining us as always on the Bobcast.
Absolutely, and I'll shout out, Sarah and Missy, my cheering squad back home, and it is always a pleasure to be here. And will we do this next week?
We will not. You will be a fielder next week.
Oh, okay, great. I'm glad we'll talk about something. I always have something to talk about.
Of course. No, we'll have you back for sure.
No, that'd be awesome. You can probably edit this out, huh?
No, we'll keep it.
All right, let's keep it forever.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Next up on the Bobcast here is the volleyball team, and I'm here with head coach Becky Fletcher. Coach, your team this weekend split your 2 matches. You lost to Davis and Elkins on Friday before a win at West Virginia Wesleyan in 4 sets on Saturday. So let's start with the Davis and Elkins match from Friday night. A 4-set loss for your team, but you were right in the thick of it in the first 2 sets. It was really a close match throughout. What do you think the most gave your team problems in that one?
I don't know if there was necessarily one thing. I think the theme for us this weekend was trying to get into a consistent rhythm. We never seemed to kind of hit our stride this weekend. I think, having Biamba back was really great. I think that was one of the things that she was trying to figure out her rhythm. She hasn't played in over 40 days. So that's, your first game match or your first day back and your first match back is a little bit trying to get into that rhythm. And just across the board, we played well at times, especially against D&E. We actually came out really hot. We came out swinging well. We came out playing really great defense. But D&E is a good team. They're ranked in the top of our conference right now. So I think that, showing that we can play a little bit flat at times and still compete with good teams in our conference says a lot about our young squad.
So you were talking about Biamba Shatenge coming back on Friday, her first match, as you said, in a little over a month. Played all 8 sets this weekend and totaled 13 kills as well. How happy were you to get her back?
I think she was happy to be back. I think she's happier and her team was happier than I could ever be. She brings this level of consistency. She blocked really well. Still, a little bit maybe a half a step slower than she used to be, just because she's still adjusting to things. But she picked that back up on Saturday. So Saturday it was really good to see her be back to her, closer to her normal self, and to be able to come, return in just one weekend and be back to what's closer to your normal self says a lot about who she is as a person and what she has brought to our team in the past.
So on Saturday, you bounced back the next day after the Davis and Elkins loss. You took down West Virginia Wesleyan in 4 sets. What do you think changed the most from Friday to Saturday that allowed your team to have success?
Oh man, I don't want to admit to this. They again were flat on Saturday, and we won the first 2, and we're halfway through the second set, and my assistant and I were like, we're winning, but we're not playing well. And we were down at one point, and we weren't playing well. And we called a timeout, and then I don't even know what song came on, but our team just had a little bit of a dance party and got out of their own heads and realized that they play better when they're having a lot of fun, and they're a little bit goofy at times. And they just remembered why they were playing, I think, in that match, and they had a blast. And so I hate to admit that, a dance party is what changed them from playing flat to playing well. But, if that's what it takes for your team to win, then you got to let them have a dance party on the sidelines.
Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah.
Keeps the chemistry going well.
Yeah.
Going back to Biamba's absence, really one of the players that stepped up the most, filling her absence, especially when it comes to attacking. When you look at first years, is Jackie Starenberg. Had a good, strong weekend. Again for her against West Virginia Wesleyan. 12 kills was her 8th match this year where she had double-digit kills.
Okay.
How have you seen her develop throughout this season?
She's just been really consistent for the most part. And she's had a couple off days here and there, but they're very rare, and she's usually able to work, laugh at herself a little bit and work through them and not let them get to her too much. And she's just developed some great chemistry on the court with some of her other teammates, with the DSs when she's in the back row, and Corey and Katie Lowe, and they've kind of taken her under their wings and teaching her what it is to be a great serve receiver and a great defender. And then in the front row, she's had a really great connection with our setter, with Edwina. So they're, when you have that chemistry and that trust in your teammates, it's really easy to play hard and be successful when you know what somebody's doing beside you.
And Starenberg has been one of the several first years or just younger players who have had a lot of success this season. We've talked a lot about Edwina Linez and the success that she's had. But we've also seen other first years and some sophomores mix in some success as well. So how happy have you been seeing that, especially now with your first season of D2 coming to a close this week and then moving over to next year?
There are young faces, and seeing them be successful on the court and off the court really always speaks to the future of your program. I've had years where we're very senior heavy in who's in the lineup and how much they're playing. And, those years are actually the more scary ones because you don't know what's looking ahead. But looking ahead and seeing how much the freshman and sophomore class has really grown and developed and been led by such a great senior class who contributes a lot to our success. I think that it's really neat moving forward that they can establish, what Division II volleyball at Frostburg State University means, and that they're going to start that tradition, and they've been doing a great job with it, and they've taken a lot of pride in it.
And I know there's still a week left, but when you look at the season as a whole up to this point, what do you think where's the most growth, I guess I would say, you've seen in your team based on where they were to start this year and then up until now as they head into their final couple matches of this season?
We have had to be extremely flexible this year. We've had a lot of really weird injuries. We've played 6 different people in the middle position. I mean, most teams are probably 3 or 4 middles deep. And so we've had some people step up and play middle that maybe didn't expect to play middle this year, or step up when we needed, just to throw a block or step up in practice. And I think the flexibility of such a young team and the willingness to go out and say, this might not be my best position or the place where I'm best, but I know the team needs it the most. I think that says a lot to their character and to the development of what they want to do at Frostburg as young individuals, and to see the program successful. There's one thing to say, like, I want to be a successful volleyball player, but when you're willing to put those little things aside and say this is for the betterment of the team, I think that shows strong growth for the program, and it shows a really great future for the program as well.
So you're now entering the final week of the regular season, 3 matches for your team this week. You head to Fairmont State on Tuesday night, your final road game of the year, before 2 home games to finish the year this weekend, Notre Dame Friday and then Urbana on Saturday. What do you really want to see from your team these final 3 matches to close out the regular season?
So we play 3 really great teams. Fairmont is a great team. When we beat them earlier in the season at home and for our first MEC win, I think there was a lot of adrenaline going. We were firing on all cylinders. We were just able to do a lot of really great things. A lot of things fell really well for us that night. I think Fairmont's going to be gunning for us a little bit. I don't think they maybe, wanted to lose to us. So we expect a pretty tough match there. And then moving forward for Urbana and Notre Dame, those were our first 2 conference games of the year. So coming back and being able to face them, knowing that we've gotten a lot better since the beginning of the year. We've gotten more confidence since the beginning of the year, and we're at home for our senior day. I think it'll be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot of emotions out there, a lot of excitement. Hopefully we can curve that to be a really good positive for us and finish off our season pretty strong.
All right, Coach, thanks for joining us here on the Bobcast. Best of luck to you as you finish out your regular season this week.
Thank you.
Back here on the Bobcast, presented by the Bobcat Sports Network. Matt Ambrose here with men's soccer head coach Keith Burns. And, Coach, season now wrapped up for you guys. Took a loss to West Virginia Wesleyan last Wednesday to close out your season. So let's just looking at that game in particular, what were some of the takeaways you had from that defeat?
Wasn't too much to take away from. I don't think we played particularly well. We tried to get some younger guys and some different guys some playing time. And as the game didn't mean really much of anything to us, but I think it still had something on the line for them. So unfortunately, they still kind of came at us with a pretty good team. And and they were good. They capitalized on some mistakes, and we struggled a little bit playing out of the back, didn't go the way we wanted it to. But some guys got some minutes that hadn't really played too much, so that was the positive side from it.
Yeah, one of those guys, Colby Nelson, the first-year goalkeeper, got the start in goal for your team. What did you see from him, and what kind of have you seen from him in practice, I guess, leading up to this that allowed you to give him the start in this one?
I mean, he's developed, I think, quite significantly from his first day on campus to now. We weren't sure what we were going to get. He was kind of forced into the number 2 position by default with Luke Sweeney's injury. And so to go through all season, just, training every day and practices and knowing he probably wasn't going to play, I think takes a little bit of mental toughness and some, being a good character kid. So, it was nice to be able to reward him with something, even if it didn't probably go the way he wanted to. But to at least say, he got 90 minutes in, and in all honesty, I mean, a lot of the goals were, they were not goalkeeper errors. He actually made some pretty good saves, and he played all right. It was just, sometimes the defense probably didn't do their job in front of him to help keep the ball out of the net.
So, again, your first season at the D2 level is in the books here. D2 level land in the MEC. 6-11-1, the record you finished with. When you look back on this season in its entirety, what are some of the positive takeaways you can take away from this season and kind of build on looking towards next year?
Well, I mean, the positives were at times when we were at our best, we showed we could compete and be a pretty good team. I think we do believe we're in the hunt for this thing, now and in the future. And I think we were a fairly young team again with only 3 seniors and only 2 started. So there's positives. As a coach, you probably can always find more negatives and things you want to improve on and be better. But I think the fact that we were capable of, the top 4 teams other than Charleston, we at least had a 1-goal game with all of them at some point, which shows that we were capable of competing on that level. And now we just gotta improve.
Joel Saul was kind of at a really good year in net his sophomore season. 5 shutouts, 4 other matches in which he allowed just 1 goal in those. He's now 2 years into his career here at Frostburg State under your coaching, and now with those 2 years in the rearview mirror, what growth did you see in Joel from year 1 into year 2?
There was a little bit of maturity. Sometimes that goes up and down throughout the year, but overall he was, I think, more focused than he was his freshman year. He always has a good work ethic. It's just a matter of keeping his mind on the game and the task at hand. I think our confidence in him, goes a long way, and there's high expectations for him. So the demands on him are pretty tough. And the fact that we weren't very deep at goalkeeper, so knowing that we were relying on him pretty much every game, at every training session, because with only one other backup who was, hadn't played at all, it was going to fall on Joel's, lap to be the guy. And, he kept us in some games again. Last year, he may have had some games that stood out a little bit more, but maybe this team was a little bit better, so I hope maybe he didn't face as many shots sometimes. But he was still a key component to that defense, and in those games that we mentioned earlier where we were competitive and playing at our best, obviously having him at the top of his game was a big part of that.
A lot of newcomers really made their stamp on this team. When you look at the stat sheet, Yunus Ben-Muna, in his first year here, led the team in goals with 6 and in points with 15, and you had 2 first years who were second and third in goals in Tamino Brown and Addison Kea respectively. How much confidence does that give you as the coach, having newcomers like that, but primarily those first years in Brown and Kea have such a strong first year on campus?
It's encouraging. We recruited offensive players specifically because it was a weakness. So, it would be nice to get a little bit more production, and I think we would have won a couple more games. But overall, as first years, they're going to have up and downs throughout the season, but I think there's a foundation and a base there for those guys that they can take forward. And I think we can build on, and then, maybe surround them with some other guys and guys that can push them to even be better. That'll be positive for the front line going forward in the future.
We named a few players so far that had a major impact on the team this year, but when you look down the roster, maybe some players who kind of fly under the radar, don't have as much of an impact, say, on the stat sheet, but really are crucial to the success of your team. Who's maybe just one guy that comes to mind immediately, or maybe a few guys on your team this year that really fit that build, maybe some under-the-radar guys that really helped you guys this year?
Jose Rodriguez in the back might not stand out, but he plays pretty much 90 minutes a game, and he's dangerous going forward. He's just got a really good soccer brain, and he's just very solid. He's kind of unassuming back there. You don't notice him because he just does his job very diligently, and he's not flashy or does things that draw a lot of attention to himself. And then maybe in the midfield, Will McComber is a guy that just kind of gets it. He's the guy you can trust, and he's gonna he's going to work, he's going to run, whatever the shift may be. If it's a 5-minute shift or you need him out there for 30 minutes, he knows what he can do, and he's not going to be the dominant, technical ball wizard out there, but he's going to do his job, which is why we put him on the field sometimes when we just need someone that's going to work hard and try to raise the level for the other guys. And even Derek Staines is kind of like that too. A guy that's, I think he did get his first goal this year, but Derek's in there to be just the high energy ball winner, get other guys around him kind of feeding off of his vibe. And sometimes that's important just because we have a tendency to get a little bit complacent, I think. But when we have guys in there that can bring the energy and hopefully make others kind of feed off of that, then it kind of raises our level of play.
Now, heading into your off season, going into next year and these next few months as you get ready to go into the 2020 season, what can you take from this year and really build off of and have that be a strength for your team heading into next season?
Well, I mean, the number one thing is we got work to do. I mean, we thought we were competitive at times, but we weren't consistent enough. We weren't good enough. So we can really build on the fact that we've got a lot of work to do. Offensively, defensively, we need to be better. So the guys returning got to do their job to get better. We got to do our job bringing in players that can impact our team. And we don't want to just be competitive. We want to be better than a lot of these teams and be clearly in the top 4 for the playoffs and not just scraping to get in. So, it's good to know where we stand. I mean, that was the biggest thing. We didn't know much about any of these teams. Well, now we know exactly where we're at and basically where we need to go. So we can start to build our team to win this conference and not just compete, but be one of the best teams in this conference.
Well, Coach, thanks for joining us here today on the Bobcast, and appreciate you joining us really all season and talking with us about your team all season long.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Back here on the Bobcast, presented by the Bobcat Sports Network, Matt Ambrose sitting down with women's soccer head coach Brian Parker. Coach, your team finished out the regular season this past week, a 1-0 loss on the road at Fairmont State to end your season at 6-11 and 1 overall on the season. So when you look at, we'll start with the Fairmont State game before getting into the rest of the season. But what were your thoughts on that one?
Really good competitive college soccer game. We were prepared for them. Nothing particularly special about how they organized tactically. Very good athletes. Pretty similar to the way the first game went. A lot of toe-to-toe defending, and I like the fact that they try to put the ball on the floor and play a bit, which is our preference, of course. And so it was a pretty good, pleasant game to watch, I guess, in terms of teams trying to connect passes and use the width and pull teams apart. And they match up with us really well. They have great athletes almost every position, and so it was a challenge for us. I think our back line did very, very well. Low shot number, I think, for the game. Single digits, for most of the game, I believe. Maybe they got to 10 or 12 at the end, but not a lot of killer chances for either team, really. And so 1-0 game on a free kick on a corner, and that's kind of how we lost the first game. So we didn't clean up on a corner kick on a second ball, and that's dangerous at every level. Of course, you have to take care of one of those details. You got to be good winning flighted balls, and that was not a specialty of ours. And we did well with it in other games, but it was not a surprise, to be honest with you, that was the sort of difference in the game. Unfortunate, but not a surprise. But we had some very good performances. It was their senior day, their last home game. It was our last game. I sort of treated it like a senior day game, and so we got a lot of the upperclassmen time and starts, and I kind of put it on them, to end the season on a high note since we knew we were done, and they did great. I was actually very happy with them, and Emily Faust put in a good performance in the goal, and all the seniors really, I think, played very well. Riley Learn was recovering from a concussion and got cleared just basically with a week to spare and was able to play her final college game and went 90 minutes. Gwen has been suffering with injury. She played nearly the 90 minutes. I think Jess Dunnigan may have played the full 90 minutes. So we had some really good performances from our seniors, our captains, and obviously Brooke doesn't come off unless she begs me usually, which doesn't happen. So, Erica Allen got a chance to start as well and gave us good minutes. So overall, I was very happy with the performance level and the fact that we kind of knew we weren't training on Monday, and the team really gave us everything they had. So overall, I was happy, but it would have been nice to maybe get a result against the top team in our division.
Really, when you look at this season, you guys were right in the thick of the MEC tournament chase throughout the majority of the season. Really, it wasn't up until this past week and a half when you guys were mathematically eliminated from that. But how satisfying that in your first year at this level of the NCAA at Division II and also in the MEC, how satisfying is it that that was the case? You were that close to conference tournament play in just your first season.
To be honest, not at all. It's not satisfying at all. I don't care what division, what conference you're in. When the whistle blows, they don't draw numbers and letters on people's uniforms that you need to treat them differently because they happen to be a scholarship or on a scholarship or from England or whatever. It doesn't even matter what year they are in college soccer, how much experience they have. You just got to accept the challenge that's in front of you and make the best of it. And we let one get away. I think this is a little bit of a disappointment because that Urbana game we were appalling at the start of that game. Frankly, one of the worst starts we had of the year at the most crucial time. And that's really on me. Our job is to really be prepared and competitive in every game we play. And we went to Urbana and did not start well. And it's something I get to think about for, quite a few weeks and months until we get another chance. But of course we're competitive in this conference, and of course, we should be in that tournament. We scored, what did we score? 10 goals on the team that took our place in the conference tournament over 2 games. And somehow we didn't get in. That's pretty stunning. That's pretty disappointing because that first half against Urbana, we just were not ready for Alyssa Edwards, even though we certainly were. I think most of our kids might have her resume in their phones. We know as much as we could know about that kid, and she still had a field day and fried us. And so what could we have done differently is something we get to wrestle with. But we did beat 4 of the 5 teams in our half of the conference in our division. So unfortunately, we got to play them twice, so we didn't beat any of them twice. And that's what we needed to do to get over the hump and get a chance to keep playing. And so, it's been a tradition here since we started this program. I always think it's kind of funny to call on tradition and history. It's like coaches like to do it selectively when it's useful to them and their team. We're used to playing in November. We set our mental timer for Thanksgiving, and we should be playing in Thanksgiving. Through Thanksgiving, we should be in the postseason in the elimination round of our conference tournament for sure. I don't care where we are, and we weren't this year, and that's a disappointment.
When you look at Brooke Shahady and the season she had, really a season to remember for her in her final year. 14 goals, 36 points, both led the team and also placed third in the conference as a whole. What was it about her performance on the field, not just that, but also her preparation leading up to this season and to each game? What allowed her to have so much success this year?
Well, her senior year, there are seniors who kind of, I think, look at that last year opportunity, and they value it in different ways. You want everyone to view the sort of ascension of your college career, right? Getting better every year, improving every year, getting smarter, obviously learning more about nutrition and making good decisions socially and making sacrifices and really preparing yourself. And I think the fact that Brooke had such a disappointing junior year, to be honest, had to be a high source of motivation for her. She did not want to, just kind of limp out of her college career and not be proud of what she did. So kudos to her. Absolute credit to her for having a good summer, really being prepared. I've said this before, how she tested out as our fittest, fastest overall athlete. She is a terrific athlete. And she got a chance to score some multi-goal games and score some game-winning goals. And that golden goal against West Liberty is a memory that she earned and she should not ever forget. She, I don't want to say single-handedly. We had some good performances. Audra Curtin scored a lot of goals, but she was absolutely critical to our success this year and was a senior and a captain and a reliable goal scorer and she deserves every accolade, every bit of credit she gets going forward. Hopefully she earns some honors. First year in the conference, we don't expect much, in terms of all conference or even all American honors or anything. But I think Brooke's worthy of some consideration, and hopefully she gets a little love here at the end.
You mentioned Audra Curtin and the season she had. She was right behind Brooke in a lot of offensive statistics. And really, the two of them at the front of that offensive attack was a very lethal duo throughout this season. The game to me that comes to mind, I believe, is that Glenville State game at home where they came on in that first half about 20, 25 minutes in, and this is like in the blink of an eye, the pace of that game changed. What was your evaluation of Audra Curtin's season, how well she played this year?
Great sophomore year. Another year of growth and maturity. Audra's one of those players who, has all the gifts. I would regard her as an elite athlete. She's got pretty good pace. She's very good with the ball, escapes pressure well, has a cannon of a shot when she takes her time and lines it up. She just has to learn how to be kind of always on. A lot of her main challenge is to just keep her focus and intensity and kind of call on that, at the right moments in the game. Be a little bit more mature, kind of mentally tough as a mature athlete, as a composed college player. But she's coming along. She's made great strides. We're asking a lot of her. Maybe as a sophomore, and she's ready for it, and she's fine with that. I think just working on her approach a little bit mentally is going to be a thing for her. But she can do that. She can learn, and I think obviously what you're trying to do in all these competitive sports is play your best at the right moments.
Right.
It's kind of time your performance level with the moment it's required in the right kinds of games. And so like that golden goal West Liberty for Brooke is a great example, right? Audra had some other great moments too. But she's now going to step into a bigger role for sure. And even though we did play her a bit as a midfield player when we needed that as well for different reasons, she's an important piece of the puzzle and had a great sophomore year.
Now, the goalkeeper position kind of was a revolving door this year between Emily Faust, Taylor Longworth, and Stephanie Vigetzi. Two of those, the latter two I mentioned, Longworth and Vigetzi, are back next season. But how important was it to get all three of those players, and more importantly, the two coming back, how important was it to get all three of those players a really good deal of playing time this season to prepare them for next year?
Well, I think a lot of coaches at a lot of levels would look at their team and would say, boy, if I could just combine this player's this with this player's that, what a great player we'd have. And so these three goalkeepers are all very different and all have strengths and weaknesses. And some of it was a little bit of game planning, which strengths and weaknesses kind of match our opponents. A lot of it, frankly, was determined just by the health and availability of the players. Mm-hmm. Faust has some ongoing back issues, and Taylor broke her finger. She broke her hand basically and was out for a couple of weeks, so which gave Steph a chance to play a bit and show her stuff. So a lot of it was really just who's in good form and who's playing well and who kind of matches what we expect from our opponents. We're a little deferential to Emily and the senior, I think, who really did pay her dues and physically took care of herself and got herself capable of playing good minutes for us at this level. So she gets a lot of credit too for kind of changing her lifestyle and her diet a little bit and really taking care of herself physically. And like I said, I think I've said before, she's sort of a fan favorite. She's a goodwill kid, high energy kid, really cares about what she's doing, just commitment level off the charts. So it was a little bit easier to root for her. Taylor is the young freshman who's got the crazy skills and is a shot stopper, but just not consistent. Needs to just improve her decision making and has some technical things. We almost have to unteach her some habits she has to improve her. And so that's going to take a little bit more time, but all coachable things, all things she can do. And Steph is the composed, calm, thoughtful one who is just kind of the reliable of the three who's really good with her feet. So going forward, we'll see. We're adding a keeper in next year who's very good, and I don't know that there's any incumbent advantage or anything. We've got good competition at the position, and we look forward to just maintaining that competition. But the spring is an awesome opportunity. Goalkeepers are especially, they gain special advantage in the off season because you're in small spaces, you're allowed to do technical work, and so that's what keepers need a lot of. So they have a tremendous opportunity to really grow with Laura Dougal, our goalkeeper coach, in the off season. So I'm looking forward to that.
When you look at this team as a whole throughout this season, and maybe a player who flew a bit under the radar, maybe doesn't pop out on the stat sheet as much as other players we talked about, like a Brooke Shahady or an Audra Curtin. When you look for players who kind of flew under the radar but really had a big hand in your team's successes this season, who would a player like that be?
Well, I like to say we probably have 5, 6, 7 unsung heroes,
I
that
figured.
we could probably talk about. But um, I think Mina Del Barello was really interesting. A really really athletic kid, just a super positive girl who just wants to learn and again real high commitment, high energy, kind of likable character on the team. Never probably played much center mid in her life, and we just decided to throw her in there and be more of a defensive presence. But then, of course, she had the ball a lot more and had to play make a little bit, and she responded really, really well and was influential in quite a few performances. We also had her, try to shut down the Edwards girl in the second half of that Urbana game, and she did that also. So she was a kind of a defensive specialist, although we didn't call on her much for that reason. So I think she was a nice surprise, a nice addition transfer, who just showed up here this year, really her first year with us. But I could go down the list. There's inspirational figures who don't even play a lot on a team, who really have an important influence. And we've got girls injured who haven't even played much college soccer at all, who show up every day and are still positive figures in around the team and are trying to just be a piece of the puzzle and help us be successful. So we got a lot of those, and I don't want to name them all, probably forget anybody, but yeah, I'm quite happy with the team culture and the commitment level, and I think players figure out how to play their role at each end of the roster, so to speak, in terms of playing time. It doesn't really matter necessarily if you want to be a good teammate and want to work hard and be a role model academically, socially. There's lots of room for that, and we have a lot of those.
So now as you head into the off season, and I know you've talked about you're in the thick of the postseason chase, disappointing to miss out, but what can you build on from this year, take into the off season, and kind of hone these skills to bring into the 2020 season next year?
Well, like I said, we beat 4 of the 5 teams,
Yeah.
in our half of the division. If Fairmont was the best team in the division and we lost to 1-goal games on on corner kicks to them, we're obviously right there. So it's not going to take very much for us to be, get over that edge, get in the tournament, possibly compete for, MEC titles. That's what we want to do. And there's, to have the expectation that we should be in the postseason, I think is obvious for next year. I said I think we should be in it this year, and I think we're pretty disappointed we're not. So there's no doubt that we want to win games in that postseason tournament. We want to get to the 2 or 1 seed and host games in that postseason tournament and advance. And so I think those are very realistic objectives. And it's kind of funny because, as hard as some of those losses were, we also kind of proved that we have the raw materials. We have the talent, we have the athleticism, we have the commitment level. Scoring 4 goals in that Urbana game in the second half, I mean, if you watch that game, we could have had 6 or 7. There were a lot of close calls even at the very end of that game. So there were moments of resilience and mental toughness for our team collectively that we can certainly build on. And we have great young talent and really good recruiting pipeline. So we're very excited about the future. But obviously in the short term, it's a little bitter.
Well, Coach, it was great talking with you all season long, and best of luck to you moving into this off season, getting ready for the 2020 season next spring. But thanks for joining us all year here on the Bobcast.
Yeah, it'll be great, and I'm glad you guys are going to give us some press on signing day, so everybody gets to see some of the quality players we have coming in across all sports. We've never really done that here, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you for that.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Take care.
Back here on the Bobcast, presented by the Bobcat Sports Network. Matt Ambrose here with field hockey head coach Caitlin Thompson. And, Coach, you wrapped up your season this past weekend, losses to Lindenwood and Bellarmine in the Independence Championship weekend hosted by Bellarmine. So let's start with the Lindenwood game. A Gabby Rahuba goal makes it 1-1 in the middle of that game. You end up losing 4-3. What did you see from your team in that match against Lindenwood?
Yeah, we just fought to the end in that game. Our last goal came with 1 second left on the clock. So, I think that I'm really proud of our girls. The past couple times we played them, they were both 3-1 decisions, and now we cut that goal differential from 2 goals to 1 goal in that game. So there's good growth going forward there, and that was the most goals we've scored in a game this season to date too. So again, another positive that we have moving forward into next season. So I think those were pretty promising things that we saw. And again, like I said, just the fight and really trying to give it everything we had in that game.
And then the Bellarmine game, a 3-0 loss for your team. But Sierra Smizer, she stuffed the stat sheet. 14 saves for her in that match. How big was she in terms of keeping that game close and within striking distance for you guys to come back in?
Yeah, Smizer did a great job in that game. I think the stats didn't really show the story of quite how evenly that game match really was. I do think that we had our chances. We were in there, just didn't get it done offensively that game. But yeah, Smizer showed up big time that game. She knew it was her last chance to throw on that Frostburg uniform and do what she could in the cage, and she really made it one to remember. So was really proud of her for doing that. And again, looking from the last time we played Bellarmine, that was a 9-1 loss, to this time playing Bellarmine, a 3-0 loss. Again, just we've really improved, and that's including having 3 of our starters out. We've really improved over as the season has gone on.
Yeah, in terms of that, I mean, your first season at the D2 level now is in the books. So when you take a look back at this season, what did you learn about your team really throughout this season?
I think our team had to have more confidence in themselves, especially our young players. We started out some of the games, the scores were much different than our actual levels of play were showing, and then some of the teams that we had a chance to kind of get another shot at, we tightened up those scores a little bit more. So we may not have come away with those wins, but we showed really great improvement. And I think moving forward, our team is really poised to be a great team, and I'm looking forward to what we can accomplish in our 2020 season.
When you look at what your team was able to do and the strengths that this team had, where do you think the biggest strength of your team lied, and how can you build upon that now going into the off season and looking forward to the 2020 season?
I think our team was pretty resilient this year. So, a lot of both of our wins, they were both come from behind. So the other team scored the first goal, and we scored the next 2 goals. So I think even in some of our losses, a team would score a goal or 2 here, we would score right afterwards, or we would just pick our heads up and continue to play hard. So I think that resiliency is definitely important moving forward. And I know I've mentioned this numerous times on the Bobcast, but just our overall togetherness, our team mentality, our team culture is just a fantastic one. It's really special. I've been a coach for numerous years now, and this is definitely one of the most special cultures I've ever been a part of. And it's just great to be able to watch them be together and do some great things together. And I'm excited for, again, us moving forward to see what that culture and that resiliency is going to translate to.
And when you talk about the togetherness of this team, you guys were in a unique situation this year. You weren't in a conference, so there were several road games you had this year. You were on long trips, places you had never been there before. You were in Kentucky. This past weekend, you were in Missouri earlier this year as well. So these long trips, you gotta. Those are more fun trips if you're spending it with teammates and people you get along with. So when it comes to that philosophy that you mentioned of team chemistry and togetherness, how big of an emphasis do you place on that? Because obviously, you got to get on the practice field, you got to improve skill-wise for the game. But how much of a point of emphasis do you place upon that togetherness, and how much time and effort do you put into ensuring that is at a high level with your team?
It's huge for us. I think that, to be a good team, you have to want to fight with and for each other. One of our top priorities of our team is to have fun, and I know that kind of sounds a little cheesy, but if you go out to practice and you're looking forward to going to that practice that day, or you're looking forward to play one of the top teams in the nation and you're not dreading it, you're more willing to work hard. You're more willing to do a better job than if, again, you were dreading it. So having fun, playing together, those are all key things that I think lead to success. And that's why our team chemistry and togetherness are so important to me, is because I feel like it's an important ingredient to success.
Gabby Verhuba, when you just highlight individual players, she was the offensive leader for this team this season, led the team in goals this year. What is it about her game and her preparation as well that allows her to have the success that she did this season?
Yeah, again, and something I know I've mentioned many times is just her competitiveness and her drive to always want to win. That isn't just something that shows up on game day. That happens at practice. She's very competitive at practice. Even if it's the smallest drill, she will make some sort of move or some sort of thing so that way she can win in whatever the competition is, even if it's us just playing rock, paper, scissors to see who's on offense first. So she's just a very competitive person, and I think her drive kind of translates to everyone else. So I think that's what makes her special offensively, is that when she has it in her head that she wants us to win a game, she's going to do whatever it takes for us to get there.
When you look down your team, and I know a lot of this has been kind of just reflecting back on the season as a whole, but when you look down your team and at players who maybe flew under the radar a bit but really made a big impact or took a huge step forward for your team this season, who's someone who kind of fits that bill for your roster here from this season?
I think Taylor Hackett is a big one for us. Unfortunately, she missed the last part of season due to an injury, but I know she'll be back and ready to go more than ever after being put in that injury situation. She's just a fantastic, solid overall player for us. I started coaching her at the club level when she was a freshman in high school, so she knows my expectations and she knows what I'm looking for, and I think that's really important as well. I think another one that has really good potential for some growth, some freshmen, I think Alexa Fleming is another one that kind of flew under the radar a little bit, and she is another one that we lost due to injury towards the end of the season. But I think that if she puts some work in, she's another one that can kind of rise up a little more. And Emily Hughes, who had to really step up into a leadership position. She's a freshman who got turned into our center back, which is a really important spot for our team. She really stepped up and she kind of flies under the radar a little bit as well. So I'm really looking forward to their development. And again, someone who doesn't really get all the stats, but really helps our team, especially chemistry wise and energy level wise, is Sam Coffey. And I think she's also a great leader for us as well, obviously being a junior captain, but she's another one that I guess flew under the radar a little bit this season, but we're excited to have her back for next season.
Well, Coach, thanks for joining us all season on the Bobcast. Great talking with you these last couple of months, and best of luck for you going into this off season and preparing for next year.
Thank you.